Hello and welcome to In the Envelope, an awards podcast. I am your host, Jack Smart, the awards editor at Backstage, your guide to the acting industry and the most trusted name in casting. We're here to talk with some of the contenders of the 2017 Emmy race, who share their advice on the craft and business of becoming an award-winning actor. This season of In the Envelope is brought to you by HBO.
I actually didn't realize I was such a big science fiction fan. When I first heard about Westworld, it was, okay, robots and cowboys. I thought, well, that's just terrible. I assumed both were areas where boys could just play with guns and that it was going to be a very sort of macho domain. I didn't even realize that I had this reverence for science fiction, cool. Which I now realize that I do.
Hi, Jamie.
Hello.
How are you?
All right.
I think it's time for us to geek out about Westworld.
Let's do it.
That was Tandi Newton that we just heard opening this week's episode of In the Envelope. I am so excited that we talked to Tandi Newton.
Yes.
I am so obsessed. I know I say I'm so obsessed with so many actors, honestly, especially female actors, but like Tandi Newton, she's the bee's knees right now.
Yeah, she really stood out on an already great show.
Yeah.
Westworld, I really enjoyed Westworld, and she was by far the best part of it.
Yep. I've been dying for a supercut of all of her scenes that I think should be exhibited as just a work of art. She plays Maeve Millay, who is, what do you call her? She runs a brothel. She's a madam.
Madam, yeah.
She's a madam of a brothel in the old west of Westworld, which is secretly an amusement park full of robots, very competent, human-looking robots, where very rich guests come to visit and play with them in the Old West. And Maeve, the cool thing about Maeve Millay is that she begins to wake up from her looped narrative and seek
chaos
revenge.
ensues.
Yes. You were saying that you had not known before the interview that she was in Star Wars?
No, my ears pricked up when she said that. I was like, oh, really?
Yeah, she will be appearing in the Han Solo spin-off Star Wars movie. And I thought it was cool that she's sort of known for being a dramatic actress, but is newly in love with sci-fi. And acting sci-fi, becoming a robot, that is a specific task for an actor, and a juicy one, as she says. I mean, what just a feast for actors Westworld is in terms of sci-fi and in terms of horror and in terms of exploring the depths of humanity and philosophy. Tandi won a Critics' Choice Award for supporting actress for playing Maeve. God, she's amazing. I'm obsessed. Also in this episode, we are joined by Carly Chaikin. Talk about amazing and obsessed. I'm also obsessed with Carly Chaikin. Two very fabulous women in this episode. Carly Chaikin stars on the USA drama Mr. Robot. She plays the hacker, Darlene, who in the second season of the show had quite an up and down journey. We talked a lot about her process and got into the nitty-gritty of auditioning and casting and, how she approaches these incredible scenes that she has to work with on Sam Esmail's show. Should we get to it?
I think so.
This episode is brought to you by HBO's original comedy series Silicon Valley, where Richard Hendricks and his team of socially awkward underdogs continue to claw their way towards tech fame and fortune. For your Emmy consideration in Outstanding Comedy Series and all other categories. I'm 100 and I'm getting it. Tandi Newton is an award-winning actor and activist known on both sides of the pond for her work on film and now on TV for HBO's Westworld, where she plays Maeve Millay, a sentient android who runs a brothel, a role that won her a Critics' Choice Award, as well as a Golden Globe and SAG Award nomination. She is also a BAFTA Award winner and a wonderful person. Here's my interview with Tandi Newton. So, full disclosure, I'm obsessed with Maeve Millay in every way.
I know, it's frustrating having to wait for the second season, isn't it?
Oh, is it? It so is. Have you guys begun the process?
Everybody feels the same. We start. Well, they've begun the process of writing.
Okay.
I've heard a few bits and pieces about what's coming up for the next season, but we don't actually start shooting until July.
And so you don't really know in terms of plot what's coming for her.
I know a little.
Oh, okay.
I do know a little.
More so than at the beginning of season 1?
No, goodness, no. At the beginning of season 1, they outlined pretty much everything, and so I don't have a sense of the whole stretch of the next season. I just know little bits about what Maeve's going to be up to.
Wonderful. Well, so who is Maeve? How would you describe her, and how would you describe the many changes she goes through in this first season?
Well, that's a big question. So if I can just answer in segments. First of all, she's a hardworking robot. And what's fascinating about her is that she doesn't know what she is. She assumes that she's a fully functioning human being with a history which she has been programmed with. So any questions that you're likely to ask her will come from a source that has been programmed. But obviously the big betrayal is that she has been programmed to believe completely that she's a human being, and she will argue to the death about that. So that's who she is. And if you can just
quite literally to the death.
Yeah, exactly. And if you could remind me about what the second part of your question was, I can't.
Well, remember. And how does she change? I'm curious about how does an actor act someone whose qualities literally change? Her intelligence is ramped up to, is it 20? The scale from 1 to 20?
I can't remember exactly what it was. I think it's actually up to 10. So it's like Spinal Tap.
Yeah.
But what's cool about Maeve is that she takes over her own programming. I think that's when it got really juicy in the first season, is that she was functioning on principles that were powered by human beings, and she literally took that over. She not only started to control herself, but she started to control the people around her who were programming her. So she had full control. She was the Great Oz. Part of what's so beautiful is that she can't condemn what they've done because she's in awe. You know, the intelligent side of her new nature is that she's able to appreciate the beauty in this technology. So even though she's at the mercy of it and has suffered thousands of times, you know, I've died 1,000 times. She's suffered. She's been at the mercy of it, but she's completely bewitched by it too. But I think that what's most powerful, and certainly for me as an actress playing it, was that it was the greatest betrayal imaginable, is to discover that everything that you've been told, everything that you believe, not just what you've been told then becomes what you believe, is a lie. And that betrayal is what fuels her desire for revenge. And so in episode 6, I'm playing out this multi-stranded rebirth, because she really does. And her rebirth is not just one. She then, she goes on these kamikaze missions in order to upgrade herself time and time again. She reminded me, I do a lot of work drawing attention to what's going on in the Congo, which has been labeled the worst place in the world to be a woman because of the sexual violence that happens there. And it really, the women that I've met there who are they are indestructible. What some of them have been through, it beggars belief. It is just, it's almost impossible to compute when they're telling you what they've been through. And Maeve, to me, was a fraction of those women. And I've seen the strength. You would think that there'd be that a person who's been through those things would be defeated, would be resentful, bitter, and find it hard to go on. But quite the opposite. Their love for life, their appreciation for life is what escalates. So Maeve has got this incredible thirst for life. And not only does she have that from a human perspective. She's got it from a robot perspective.
Mm-hmm.
What these robots want more than anything is to be human, even though they know it's a lie.
Mm-hmm.
And she is determined. I mean, maybe this is what some of the second season will have in store. I actually don't know.
Uh-huh.
But, this sense of, I think the kind of existential question that comes from the show, which I love, is what makes a soul?
Yeah.
That sentience, is if you can feel, if you can reflect, if you have memory, feelings, compassion, empathy, does that mean you have a soul? And because let's look at a lot of, we call some human beings robotic, people who don't have empathy, who don't have feelings, who don't seem to have feelings anyway.
Certainly.
Who are sadistic, and people who don't seem to feel anything. Do they have less of a soul than someone who is feeling, who is compassionate? I mean, these are existential questions that we are really dealing with.
Absolutely.
What makes a person pathological, and as a result, do they deserve to live? Look at capital punishment. These are real questions which we are, as a humanity, struggling with. And that's one of the things I love about Westworld, is that those parallels are very clearly there, and it allows us to think about those things. I was thinking about all of those things playing Maeve. I would ponder those very pithy existential questions as I was playing her, and I felt it was such a gift to be given a role that actually allowed me to consider those things.
Right. I mean, you used the word juicy earlier to describe the material that you were given for this. I mean, you must have just read this script and thought, there are so many different ways to play this, so many different layers.
Yeah, there are so many different layers, and it was strange mixture of frustrating and liberating, because to begin with, we were repeating literally the same situations, the same lines over and over again. Yes, right. I got to amp it up a little bit here and there. I got to, you were just saying, I had to repeat the same scene in slightly different ways. And at some point, maybe halfway through, I was starting to think, geez, this is robotic. And it wasn't until I saw the whole piece that I saw how powerful it was. A lot of what makes it powerful is the repetition, and in how less was definitely more. So that once we started to break out of our loops, that's when the fire came. And then by the end, of course, when she's off script,
completely
literally off script. And given free rein. So, the second season, I can't even begin to imagine where we'll be able to go. It'll be like the whole first season was just learning to fly, and now off we go. The runway is ahead.
Yeah, I've heard the creators say that season 1 is sort of a prequel of sorts to everything that comes afterward. Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, I haven't actually seen the movie. I'm very much looking forward to seeing it. But apparently, the movie Westworld starts where we leave off.
And I'm wondering too about the campaigning aspect. I don't even know whether to call it campaigning, but when you go on a promotional tour and you do magazine covers or interviews, podcast interviews, for example, all of that is in promotion of this new project. But do you also see that as an opportunity to bring it back to your activism?
It's funny you say that, because normally when I work, I separate my vocation from the human rights work that I do. Only partly it's because it's not relevant. And sometimes I'm frustrated by the lack of insight into women's issues, the lack of writing by women. But with Westworld, our key writer is Lisa Joy, our showrunner, and her perspective, obviously it's a female perspective. She's a very, she's an esteemed writer. She's the mastermind behind Westworld. And also we're dealing with these existential issues, which I mentioned before. And I actually felt that I was continuing my work as a human rights activist when I was on the set of Westworld.
Oh, wonderful!
Because of the themes of the show.
Yeah.
So it's not that I always bring things back to it, but it's relevant. If you ask me what my inspiration is, then I'm going to mention that because that's the truth.
Right.
But I don't see Westworld as an opportunity to, carry a torch for the work that I do outside. It just happens to be relevant to me.
Yeah, and in the context of science fiction, which, I mean, I think it's been said that the best science fiction isn't invented or imagined. It is all, as you said, kind of based on real world issues or inspired by real world events. And Westworld is certainly an example of that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm working on Star Wars right now, and the same thing would be said for Star Wars. If you look at Darth Vader, you look at Obi-Wan, you look at all these characters, and you can see parallels with our ideas about God, or ideas about men and women and larger existential questions that we ask ourselves as a humanity. So yeah, science fiction is the realm where these things can be played out, and I think I actually didn't realize I was such a big science fiction fan when I first heard about Westworld. It was robots and cowboys. I thought, well, that's just terrible. I assumed that both were areas where boys could just play with guns and that it was going to be a very sort of macho domain. But it's ironic because I named my first daughter Ripley after the character in Alien, and I didn't even realize that I had this reverence for science fiction, which I now realize that I do.
Yeah, well, and you're very good at it.
And the same with westerns. I was like, oh, westerns, it's all about white men on horses, being macho. And Jonah and Lisa said, well, have a look, at these Sergio Leone movies. I was like, oh God, this is going to be terrible. I'm going to be so bored. And it went against everything that I had assumed. I mean, there's me thinking I'm so open-minded when actually I was prejudiced against these movies that I hadn't even appreciated, and I'm now a huge fan. I love those films. Once Upon a Time in the West. I mean, they're just One-Eyed Jacks, my dad's favorite movie when I was growing up. I now soak them up.
That's wonderful. It's amazing how so many different influences and inspirations can inform a role like this. It's just what a wonderful palette for you to draw from.
Best role I've ever played, without a doubt.
Wonderful. Well, and so for Maeve, you earned a Critics' Choice Award. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. I was really surprised.
Yeah. And a SAG nomination, a Golden Globe nomination. And so up next are the Emmys. And I'm wondering, how do you go about planning to publicize your role or to work with HBO to promote kind of the first season of a new show now that the Emmys are coming around the corner?
I don't tend to think about it in that way. I'm publicizing, or I'm helping to publicize Westworld just so that viewers can enjoy watching it if they so choose. I'm not thinking about, I really don't think about it in terms of awards. I've been acting for 25 years. That's half my life. And it's always the same pattern of you make the movie, or in this case, the TV show. And then, you get invited onto TV shows to talk about it, talk shows. You get invited, to speak to journalists and magazines. And it's all with the hope that people that would enjoy it will get a chance to see it. That's the ulterior motive. There's no other motive for me, which is why winning the Critics' Choice Award was just a huge surprise. And, I was humbled. I feel like, it's a gift which I enjoy with, humility, and it's certainly not something that I expect or something that I campaign for, because it's not winning an election. I'm not going to be
right.
I'm not going to be in a position of power if I win. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
It doesn't. This is not so that I have any authority over anybody or anything. I think that awards for me are an incredible gift. They're gifts, and no more than that. It's
absolutely.
There's no. I don't know. I don't. I think if I thought that there's a way of winning them, by campaigning, that it wouldn't
Mm.
really be honest, and it wouldn't
Ah,
be a gift anymore.
right.
It would be something that I've bought, and I don't want to
Oh,
buy
yeah.
one. I want to, if someone wants to give me a gift, it's got to be because it comes from their heart, you know.
Yeah.
And I maybe I'm naive, but that's just the way I do it. And I think it's partly because there have been times in the past when I've thought, oh God, yeah, this deserves an award, and my role is really amazing and it could garner an award, and then it hasn't happened, and it's such a depressing moment when
Sure.
that penny drops.
Of course.
That all the efforts can lead to nothing. So, like I said, the reason I mentioned how long I've been doing this for is that what I've realized is that the intention has to be about the audience, has to be about the people for whom you have made this.
Mm-hmm.
And, very often they're not even the people that vote. But absolute hand on heart, they're the ones I do it for.
Right. That's
So
good to hear. It's about the audience. Yeah. Yeah.
It's about you. Of course, it's about the audience because, awards might come, they might not. But what is definitely going to happen is people are going to watch it.
Yeah.
That's definitely going to happen. But so the Emmys coming up, I just see it, in the same way that I see, these things as gifts. I see award ceremonies as an incredible opportunity to just share in the wonder of what we do as artists.
Yeah.
It's the only time we ever get to be with each other and be fans of one another. As opposed to being in competition with each other.
Yeah.
Over roles or that kind of thing, or ratings or that. I just don't. I take that's for the businessmen. That's for the money people. Right. And I'm not naive about the fact that if you win an award or if a show wins an award, it means the ratings might go up. I'm not stupid. I do get it, but that's not that's not my job.
Yeah.
So in a way, talking about how am I going to go about campaigning, you got to talk to HBO about that because they've probably got a plan that's brilliant.
Sure.
Right. But I'm not privy to that plan. All I do is step into the opportunities that I'm given to share this work that I'm so proud of with people that might enjoy it.
Yeah, very cool. Very cool. Because we are Backstage, our Backstage users and Backstage listeners of this podcast are very interested in any advice you may have in terms of, how do you go about earning these amazing roles and getting into the room in the first place? What is your number one piece of advice for early career actors?
Oh, that is a tough one. I mean, getting into the room is everything. And nowadays, because of social media, it's a whole new frontier. And I would honestly say that if you have a lust for creativity, just start doing it at home. Write, get your friends together, get your iPhones and start filming. If you can save up a bit of money to get an editing app, use it. It's a whole new frontier, and people have access now to the tools that can make movies. If that's what you like. If you want to perform and you want an audience, busk. Get out there, do it in front of people. Write to people that you love. I heard this wonderful story the other night. One of the puppeteers on Star Wars. He's an amazing puppeteer. He's played some of the monsters in some of the creatures in lots of Star Wars movies. And when he was a kid, he wrote to the Jim Henson Workshop and said, I want to be a puppeteer. How do I do it? And they wrote back saying, well, you're only 11. You're too young, but when you're older, check back in with us.
Oh, wow.
And then when he was 17 years old, he got a call from the Jim Henson Workshop, and they'd gone through the old letters because they were looking for applicants for a new program they were developing, teaching kids and whatever. And they found his letter and they said, come on over and let's see what you've got. And that's a true story. So I think if you love something, if you're really excited and animated by the desire to be creative, you can't do that on your own. You have to reach out to people. So on the one hand, get people together who are like-minded, learn the instruments, save up some money so you can get the apps that help you do that, and write letters. Just don't stop writing letters, emails. You can go online. Google is an incredible search engine. You can find the addresses of people, write letters of appreciation about people's work. I get letters every single day from people because they've appreciated work I've done, or they ask advice, and sometimes I'll write back. It depends what's going on.
Sure.
But that's my advice: is if you're hungry, go eat.
Well, gosh, Thandie, thank you so much for taking the time. This is really wonderful.
This has been fun.
So fun. Is there anything else that you need Backstage users to know or to hear straight from you?
I tell you what, I would love to talk to Backstage again another time. So let's save it up.
Absolutely. We should get you on a magazine cover one of these days.
Yeah, maybe I'll do that in my campaign for an award.
Exactly. Well, yeah, keep breaking legs going forward, and I'm so excited for season 2.
Oh, thank you so much, my friend.
This episode is brought to you by HBO's original comedy series Veep, starring Julia Louis-Dreyfus. Veep follows former Vice President and one-time President Selena Meyer and her staff as they attempt to make their mark and leave a lasting legacy without getting tripped up in the day-to-day political games that define Washington. For your Emmy consideration in Outstanding Comedy Series and all other categories. Carly Chaikin was nominated in 2013 for a Critics' Choice Television Award for Supporting Actress in a Comedy for the series Suburgatory, the ABC sitcom. Soon after it was canceled, she got the role of Darlene on USA's hacker drama Mr. Robot, the Golden Globe winner for Best Drama Series. She's an actor on the rise, and for that reason has plenty of insight for working actors on how to navigate the industry. Here's my interview with the wonderful Carly Chaikin. Have you done like voiceover audio stuff before?
I've always wanted to do voiceover and animated stuff.
Oh, cool.
Like doing like Family Guy or something like that.
Yeah. Why not? When is it going to happen?
Tell someone. I don't know. Hello, world.
That's awesome.
I can't play like, Disney princess because I have like a deep voice.
Yeah, you could play.
But I could play like the villain.
Yeah.
Which is more fun anyway.
That would be fun. So yeah, I don't want to say that Darlene is a villain, but I'd love to get into who she is and like, what do you think of her? What did you first think of her when you first read about her?
Well, in the pilot, she only has like one scene.
Yeah.
So all I had was the pilot, and they gave me they gave me the subway scene from episode 2. And so that's all I knew about Darlene.
Cool.
But I just love the project, and Sam, our creator, and, he told me before I tested that I was his sister.
Oh, okay.
And I was like, what?
And that's pretty much all you had to go off of.
Yeah. He was like, but this character is going to get like much bigger and more prominent, and she's like,
nice.
Helping. He didn't tell me that much, but I was just like trusted him and was like, it has to be cool.
Right.
And then, at season 1, we got all the episodes like week by week.
Very cool.
So I really didn't like know what was going to happen or who she was going to become, and was kind of finding that out with her.
Yeah.
And then, with season 2, we got all of them up front.
Okay.
So then I could really kind of know.
Interesting.
That's
know exactly
when I really
where
got
she
to know
ends
her.
up.
Yeah.
It's almost more like a movie in that regard.
Yeah.
Because I've heard for TV actors, especially for like sitcom actors, they have that thing where when you start off, the writers don't know everything about the character and the actor certainly doesn't. And so you have to make choices to make the character strong and interesting. Mm-hmm. But you don't necessarily want to commit to one path and then have the writing contradict some choice you made.
Right.
So you knew that she was Elliot's sister.
Yeah.
And that she was a hacker. Mm-hmm. And that she was fabulous.
Mm-hmm. Pretty much. And it was like, let's go.
That's awesome.
But yeah, I mean, I also think, that the acting ends up also dictating the writing in a way. Like Sam says too, like we're also creators of these characters now. And we're also in a very unique scenario because most people aren't like Sam, and don't have a project like this be so inclusive and collaborative and, give us the power too.
Yeah.
So, it's like, because now when he's writing, he's like, he has us in mind because he's like, it's you.
Right.
It's not, you know them better than I do. So we still, a lot of the times, I'll be like, I would never say that. I'm not going to say that here. Like, she would say this instead.
Oh, cool.
And, and he's like, okay. Or we'll talk about it.
Yeah.
But, I think he has an overall idea of the story. But I think that things, aside from like the bigger picture, have probably shifted and changed a little based on all of us. Because
amazing.
It's, if anybody else played, like I also read for Angela, Portia's character. Mm-hmm. And her and I always talk about this where like both of us are good actors and I could have played Angela and done a good job, but it would be a totally different character.
Different. Yeah, yeah.
And then that would make Darlene a totally different character.
Right.
And
which might affect the actual plot of the story.
Right.
Sure.
So that's why casting is so important, but it also is, the actor really ends up kind of also like shapes who the character is too.
And is that true of most TV shows? I feel like that's more on the rare side to have someone that collaborative with his actors.
Yeah, it's very rare.
Yeah.
I think, I would like to think that we're always like, you have no idea how amazing this is. And he's always like, why? This is how it should be.
Okay, yeah.
And we're like, yeah, it is how it should be, but unfortunately it's not.
Yeah, okay. And so much of that is because, did you guys know that it would be this huge hit when you first started off? Or was it like, this is a very cool project, who knows how it'll do, who knows about the success part of it?
Yeah. Because you never know.
No. You never know what's going to catch on.
No.
And it was on USA, which had not had many prestige drama before Mr. Robot. Yeah.
Well, yeah, because when they called me and first said, hey, like, they want to see you for this USA pilot, I was kind of like, like, I wonder what this is going to be.
Right.
And I was like, okay, I'll read it. Like, sure. And then I read it, and I just remember sitting there with, like, my jaw to the floor and, like, unable to speak and, like, slam my computer down, and my boyfriend was there, and I was like, holy shit! And could not stop talking about it the entire night and was just like, this is so cool. And we all knew that we had something really special.
And that was your first go-around with, like, the quote-unquote awards circuit.
Yes.
Because you had been on Suburgatory.
Yeah. Well, Suburgatory, I actually was nominated for Critics' Choice Award.
Right. Congratulations.
Thank you. But I, like, sobbed when they called me. I was like, what? Because we didn't do any award stuff.
I was going to ask.
That was, like, literally...
all just the merit of that show.
Out of the
your
blue.
Performance. Yeah.
Yeah, so, like, this is something, it'd be like, okay, that's what we're trying for. But that was, like, I woke up one morning and was like, what?
And you're still reeling.
We did, like, where, whatever press came up. But it wasn't like a cable drama show where we're like, let's, like, campaign for, an Emmy or things like that.
Right.
So in that way, but, of course, we did everything, all of the other press and stuff to support the show.
Sure. And so the Emmy campaign, you guys kind of all went through the rigmarole of doing that last year and won Emmys.
Golden Globe.
And a Golden Globe. I'm thinking of Rami for the...
Rami, yes.
Rami won the Emmy last year.
I cried.
And so this time it's season 2, and so it's the second go-around. And is there a different strategy, or is there, oh, here we go again? Or is it twice as big as it was last year?
It's interesting because, people we didn't get nominated for Globe for season 2, and I think it's so crazy these days with how many amazing TV shows are coming out, how like, just the caliber of TV these days, and I think a lot of people didn't respond to season 2 in the same way that they responded to season 1, which is interesting, and I understand it.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I think with kind of all the other new shows and stuff. So now, I don't know what their plan is, but with season 2, it was much more character driven, and I think it allowed the audience to really get to know all of us. So now going into season 3, we can go back to that kind of more plot driven stuff, having a deeper understanding of everyone that's involved.
Gotcha.
I'm also biased to season 2 because I'm because my stuff was so good.
Yeah, cool.
My story stuff that I got was, it's as an actor, all you want and can hope for is that juicy role.
Juicy, yeah.
And, this really is dream job and season 2 especially, there was just so much to play with and work with. I rewatched season 2 before we started.
Cool.
And, I always say that it's what happened before is just as important, if not more, than what's happening now.
Mm-hmm.
So
it's almost like you're doing research.
Yeah, you can never
just rewatching.
Think about of knowing where you've been enough.
Yeah, because some actors don't like watching themselves on screen.
I think that don't even get me started on that.
I do think it is interesting that there are two camps of actors. Some can't handle looking at themselves on screen, and I almost don't understand how they can turn in a good performance if that's the case. I think it's BS. I think that's how you learn. Yeah.
If you
what
can't...
you're good at and what works. And,
right.
Yeah,
that's how I've learned the most, is because a lot of the times, too, it's what you think you're doing doesn't translate onto screen because it doesn't matter. You're not doing a play.
Yeah.
If your performance is amazing, in person, but on screen it didn't read that way, then it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It's kind of like red carpet stuff. If your dress looks great in person but not in photographs, doesn't matter because the photographs are what matter.
Right.
But that's how I learn the most. That is watching it, is seeing the final product, of understanding how it works, of what's working, of and what's not. Mm-hmm. And I think that it's such a disservice to not do that and watch and
absolutely
learn. And it's
especially for TV when you're continuing a role.
Right.
Yeah. So you mentioned the red carpet. That is one of the many tasks that an actor is expected to do for big projects like this. Is that also something that you just got to learn by doing? Is there any
yes
tips that you have for actors who are new to this?
That is definitely its own art form, I guess, that I still feel like I'm not very good at.
Oh, you're so good at it. Your Instagram is a work of art, for one thing.
Yeah, I mean, the first time I ever did a carpet when I was 19.
Oh, wow.
I was carrying my purse and looked horrible and was oh my God, this is so embarrassing. And it's a lot. It's intense. You have people just screaming at you that you're okay, calm down. And you can't win.
You can't win. Yeah, wow.
Can't win. Everybody, if you're looking to the right, somebody's yelling at you to look to the left.
Uh-huh.
So
there's no outfit that's going to please everybody. There's
there's no, everybody's at 5,000 different angles at every given moment.
Yeah.
So, but I think, the mindset, I always have to put on a different mindset of a character going into that.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
I've heard that as well, that it's an acting exercise.
Oh, yeah.
When you step out on the carpet.
Yeah, because you have to be I am the hottest thing ever. Take my picture.
Yeah, that's the trick.
Yeah.
And that's just a mental trick you got to play on yourself,
completely.
Right? Oh, interesting.
And of course, going to those things, you watch it on I've watched it on TV my whole life.
Yeah.
And so to be there is crazy. But what's also crazy is when you're there, it really doesn't feel like what you think it would feel like.
It's that same thing of as an actor learning what works on camera and then seeing it played back to you. These are often two very different things.
Yeah, the Globes, it seems like this grand, crazy, big ballroom.
Yeah.
And there it was just felt like we're all just at dinner and like all these tables and going on stage like felt very just like a, you know, like a little theater stage and just all these people and everybody that's there is hanging out and it's like more for like America watching and
cool. Yeah.
And so it's just weird. It's interesting.
Yeah. And so this is maybe a goofy question, but take Backstage users and listeners through. How do you get nominated for an award?
If I know.
How do you get nominated for a Critics' Choice Award? Step 1.
Just be fabulous.
Be fabulous.
I mean, I always think you can't even think about that stuff.
Right.
You know, because I see actors where I'm like, oh, God, they're acting for an Emmy.
Oh, interesting.
You know, and it's like, that can't, you know, then you start getting into what you think something looks like.
Mm-hmm. And guessing what Emmy voters want or...
Yeah, or like you're playing someone who's, you know, like... You know, say you're playing someone that is a killer and you're like, what would a killer be like? Like, what's like, how do you play an intense, like, grr, I'm a killer?
Yeah. You're trying to like label the performance.
Yeah, to be like, look at what a good killer I am. Yeah. And so...
That's certainly not how you approach Darlene in her scene where she kills someone.
Right. And so it's like if you're going into it being like, oh, I want to get an award, you know, your performance becomes very inauthentic.
Sure. And it's just distracting to have to make yourself think about all of that, too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It definitely is one of those, like, of course, that's, like, you know, the ultimate goal or dream or whatever as an actor to have that recognition.
Yeah.
And so, you know, who wouldn't hope for that. But for me, like, I really try to keep... Because there is so much bullshit in this industry and in my job, and it will f***ing kill you. So it's like I really constantly am like, just put your head down and do your work.
Yeah,
and like
that's the mantra.
That's that. Yeah,
for sure. And do you think that a lot of that bullshit is specifically? This is such a leading question. Specifically targeted at women?
Yes, I do. It's very funny you bring that up because, yes.
Mm-hmm. I'm sure it's on your mind.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Did someone tell you?
No. No, I just assume because all female actors, I'm thinking there's such a double standard.
You know what? That's... God. I wish Portia was listening.
Care to comment? Yeah, where's Portia?
I had never experienced that before. Mm-hmm. And I did, even last year, I did this women's panel with other women, not in the business, just, you know, entrepreneurs or whatever. And I was asked if I ever felt like I've been treated differently. And I was like, no, I've never felt that difference. I've always felt, because I guess my whole life, I would always say, like, why would someone tell me, like, you run like a girl? Like, why? Like, girls run great. You know, I never separated the two. And, yeah, for the first time, though, I have experienced that inequality. Mm-hmm. And it's disgusting. Yeah. And it's very sad and astonishing to see.
Mm-hmm. So what can we do? What steps can we...
You tell me. I mean, I think, you know, Portia and I have been dealing with this year, and what we've stuck together. And I think that's what it takes, is both of us saying we're not going to, you know, like, we need to open our mouths and we need to say something. Yeah. And with the support of one another, because we couldn't do it alone.
Yeah.
And, you know, like, and go to battle. You know, naturally your instinct is to just go, ugh, okay, that's not fair, but whatever.
Yeah, and walk away and roll your eyes. Yeah.
Right. And I think that this time we were like, this is not okay. Yeah. And I, as a person, for my own self-worth, like, need to stand up and say something. And not every battle is going to end in a win.
Right.
Which I'm well aware. But the point is that you opened your mouth and you said something.
It's opening your mouth, yeah. Totally.
And going into that next thing, starting things off differently.
Yeah. That was so juicy and amazing. Thank you. I'm going to ask you some kind of rapid fire, not quite rapid fire questions that you can answer from the heart. Who is, as of this moment, your favorite actor?
Nicole Kidman and Reese Witherspoon.
Amazing.
Big Little Lies.
Okay, so this is becoming sort of the Big Little Lies podcast a little bit. Where like I've now talked about it with so many different people and I'm totally obsessed with it.
Before I came here and, I was so tired and was kind of having a hard time like getting myself to start prepping for the show.
Uh-huh.
And was watching that and watching Nicole Kidman's performance and I was just so like,
yeah.
You are so good. And it inspired me to get my ass to work, to be like, that's what I want to do.
That's the standard.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And so the next question was like, what was the last amazing performance you saw? But it was definitely that.
Definitely that.
What was the last TV show you watched?
I've been watching Shameless.
Oh, cool. Uh-huh.
And Dear White People.
Oh, cool. Yeah. Nice.
Which is really good.
I know. There's so much TV out there. I've been trying to. This spring is just insane. I can't keep up with anything.
Can't keep up.
I have a long list. This is a big question, but what is great acting to you?
Ooh, being believable.
Mm-hmm.
Not. I hate when I watch someone and know they're acting.
Mm-hmm.
When I can watch someone and forget that I'm watching someone play something and I get like just wrapped up in them and I believe them, that's great acting to me.
Totally. It's the Reese Witherspoon, Nicole Kidman thing. They're these huge movie stars and we all know who they are, but they just disappear into those roles.
Yeah. I kept, expecting Reese Witherspoon, like, before every line, I expected it to be like her talking back, just like Reese doing that.
Sure.
And
her type of character.
Yeah,
that she's kind of known for.
Right.
Yeah.
And every single time I was like, she's not there. Like she's really playing this part. And that's, to me, it's like, right, being able to be this huge star and not even taking that into like consideration when you're watching them.
Yeah. And there's that generosity of like, an actor is good when each of their scene partners become better just by being around them. It's that what you're talking about with the reaction shots and with the listening.
Oh, yeah.
When you have someone listening like Reese Witherspoon listens in that show, everyone else is going to be better in their delivery.
Yeah, you definitely, in life, you either like meet someone else's level or go down to some, so it's like when you're working with an amazing actor and they're in it, you're more in it.
Yeah.
And then you're like in it together.
Yeah. You mentioned earlier that when you read the Mr. Robot script, you just fell in love with the part. Like, how do you not then just stake your whole life on getting it? How do you not then?
Because you will be miserable.
Right.
I love talking about auditioning too. Yes. I think I was trained a lot in auditioning because it is its own specific art form.
Yeah.
You can be an amazing actor and a horrible auditioner.
Yep.
And that sucks.
Yeah, it does. It's not fair.
It's not fair.
Yeah.
And so, but when I first started auditioning, every movie was like live or die. I would go on an audition and like would just be like, oh my God, and like waiting to hear and just so like, the weight of that, it was just so intense and like
so anxious.
It's horrible.
Yeah.
And of course, when the beginning of anything is going to feel like that. But for me, like I have gotten to a place where, and a lot, like, all thanks to my coach, Jonathan Slavin, who's also an actor, who's beyond incredible. And, like, I owe everything to him. But really, like, there's a few things. One, you're not competing with anybody. It's either your part or it's not.
That's tricky.
Right. Case in point, Portia and I going in for the same role.
Right.
It's not going to be about who's better because we're both good. It's like...
And so different.
Right.
Totally.
So different.
Yeah.
Everybody brings something different. And so if they want her, they're never going to want me. And if they want me, they're never going to want her. And that's that.
Yeah.
But there have been many times where I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, I am perfect for that. Like, why didn't I get that?
Yeah. That's only natural.
Yeah. But to me, it's like, I like to be as prepared as possible, go in there, do everything that I can, and then leave, and then let it go.
Let it go. Yeah.
Because the results aren't up to me.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Right.
You know, like, there isn't, all I can do is the best that I can do. And the other thing too is like, just like for me, like the trust in the universe. With Suburgatory, when the show got canceled, of course I was devastated.
Sure.
And we didn't want it to, but I knew, like, you know, as I'm like sobbing, I was like, okay, there's a reason why this is happening though. Like, something is going to come up that I wouldn't have been able to do if it hadn't been. And then Mr. Robot comes up.
There it is.
So, you know, I think that it's like, for every audition of looking at it as a chance to get to act, to get in front of someone and like, you know, do a scene and like play this character and work on your craft. And it's just like letting go of that end result.
Yeah.
Which is so much easier said than done.
Of course. And now that you've been on the other side of the camera as well, and you're starting to, I mean, have you done casting type things?
I want to be a casting director.
Cool. Yeah.
I literally like tell that to everybody because I'm so fascinated by everybody getting the same scene and coming in and how different everyone does it.
Casting is totally an art form.
I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so what have you learned from getting behind the camera? You mentioned that you learned a lot about your work by watching yourself on camera. But is that something you recommend for actors? Of course, they should work behind the camera on all aspects of the set to familiarize and to practice.
I think, you know, and the guy, my short that I just did, I also acted in and directed it and wrote it and produced it and edited it.
Whoa.
But I think, like, being able to step away from the result is, I mean, and I guess, like, with everything in life, is, like, you do the work, you do the footwork, and, like, you let it go.
Yeah. Well, Carly, thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you.
To let you go.
They're like, get the
Thank you, Carly, for stopping by and giving us your wisdom.
Definitely. And it was interesting to have two people at very different points in their careers giving their opinions on the industry.
Yeah.
And
yeah, Carly's got a unique perspective on that right now.
Yeah, and a lot of it matching up, interestingly. Yeah.
The Emmy nominations are approaching. Emmy nomination voting is about to close, and I mean, we're excited for this coming Emmy season.
Who knows what's going to happen?
Who knows? I'm excited. In fact, I'm just going to go watch some TV right now because I have a very long list of shows that I need to catch up on.
Okay, bye.
Bye. Thank you to this week's special guests, Carly Chaikin and Tandi Newton. Be sure to like, rate, and subscribe for more interviews from the front lines of the 2017 Emmy race. In the Envelope is recorded at Lotus Productions and Hyperbolic Audio in New York City. Thanks, as always, to producer Jamie Muffett. You can follow him on Twitter at JamieMusicNYC. I am Jack Smart. You can follow me on Twitter at JackSmartWrites. Thank you to the team at Backstage, aka the most trusted name in casting: Peter Rappaport, Ryan Remstad, Jesse Balashak, Francis Ramos, Rawaan Alkhatib, and especially the exquisite Kasey Howe. For more awards and industry coverage, head over to Backstage.com. Thanks for listening. Tune in next week for another glimpse in the envelope.